Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Fazel. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and we're going to talk about positive behavior support versus zero tolerance.
I'm Ashley Miller. I am from Canton, Michigan, and I'm going to be the summarizer for positive behavioral support plans and then also go over research and limitations.
Hi, my name's LaDonna Rabb. I'm from Rushville, Indiana, and I will be going over zero tolerance, the limitations, and the research.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce the positive behavior support versus zero tolerance. So positive behavior support is an empirically developed versus zero tolerance based approach to eliminate challenging behaviors in association with pro-social skills.
For positive behavioral support plans.
Positive behavior support decreases the need for more intrusive or aversive interventions, like punishment or suspension, and can lead to both systematic as well as individual change. Zero tolerance was initially defined as consistently enforced suspension or expulsion policies in response to weapons, drugs, or violent acts in the school setting. Over time, however, zero tolerance has come to refer to school or district-wide policies that mandate predetermined or typically harsh consequences or punishment for a wide degree of rule violation. So both zero tolerance and positive behavior support relate to behavior modification. So positive behavior support is positive, empirically validated approach, where zero tolerance is a punishment-based approach. So the background on where they both come from is positive behavior support has emerged from the controversy surrounding the use of aversive consequences with people with developmental disabilities. So it began in a statement by Horner and others in a recent study. A broad-based movement has emerged in the support of non-evasive behavior management. So non-evasive behavior management has developed as an alternative to the use of more extreme adverse events, and coined the phrase positive behavior support to refer to non-adversive behavior management procedures. They stated that many people are being subjected to dehumanizing interventions that are neither ethical nor beneficial. And zero tolerance was created in 1986. It began to receive national attention as the title of the program developed and implemented by U.S. Attorney Peter Nuez in San Diego for impounding sea-bearing vessels carrying any illegal amount of drugs.
The use of PBS decreases the need for intrusive or aversive interventions. It can also target an individual student, but it also does not focus exclusively on the student. It can also focus on the entire school as well. Positive behavior support has proven to be effective in promoting positive behavior in students and schools, and by implementing PBS as a strategy to maintain appropriate social behavior, it will make the schools a safer environment. It has been proven that schools that implement these interventions for problem behavior prevention report increases in time engaged in academic activities and improved academic performance. Appropriately implemented PBS can lead to dramatic improvements that have long-term effects on the lifestyle, functional communication skills, and problem behavior in individuals with disabilities. It also assists schools in both implementing and sustaining such comprehensive evidence-based practices by incorporating findings from organizational behavior management designed to increase the capacity of an organization to facilitate and maintain system change. As noted by Suwagi and Horner, strategies derived from empirical studies in organization behavior management include gaining and maintaining support from school leaders, basing decisions on existing data, and using team decision making. It is a very comprehensive system of support that is in place in all areas in a school, including like hallways, classrooms, cafeteria, playground. The goals of PBS are to prevent the development of problem behavior, to decrease or eliminate currently occurring discipline problems, and to increase positive social behavior of all students. Schools that choose to implement PBS begin by developing a team that is in charge with obtaining and maintaining faculty and staff commitment to the system's change and designing and implementing the PBS program in the school. Prior to developing and implementing a PBS program, teams are encouraged to obtain faculty investment and commitment. If the majority of the faculty do not view addressing discipline problems as a priority, they will unlikely to commit to a comprehensive and systematic program that addresses these problems. So it's really important that the teams work together and they work to find a common goal to implementing these systems. The specifics of a PBS at any school are derived based on the school's data. The school team reviews existing data, which this data is typically office discipline referrals, and other resulting consequences. To identify recurring discipline problems, the settings in which discipline problems occur most often and frequently implemented consequences for recurring discipline problems. The school team may also gather data by interviewing faculty and staff, conducting observation in the school, and analyzing standardized test scores, detention, suspension, expulsion, and attendance rates. Based on the school's data, the specifics of the PBS program are developed. So then after the team has developed the rules and expectations and design a reward program, they then turn their attention to designing and implementing curriculum to teach the program to the entire school. And the most critical component of PBS is evaluating data to ensure fidelity of the implementation and making adjustments as needed. The three critical components to increasing the likelihood that the plan will be implemented with fidelity are developing faculty commitment, gaining the support and leadership of the administration, and finally training staff to ensure that they are familiar with and able to implement the program. Some research that has supported PBS, I found two studies that have supported this. According to Warren et al., they implemented a school-wide support in an urban middle school. They, after establishing a PBS team and identifying behavioral expectations, a school-wide token system, which was referred to as gotcha coupons, was implemented to reinforce appropriate behaviors. A number of outcome measures in addition to office discipline referrals were used in pre- and post-intervention years, including school conferences with students, timeouts, in-school suspensions, short-term suspensions, and out-of-school placements. Overall, they saw a decrease in all aversive methods used except out-of-school placements that remained the same. Further, 72% of the gotcha coupons were given by only 25% of the teachers, suggesting that results may have been greater if the entire staff consistently rewarded appropriate behavior using coupons. So this kind of shows that it's really important for the whole school to be on board with positive behavioral support, and if any teachers are not, that can play an effect on the implementation of positive behavioral support plans. School-based teams for interventions can also identify non-classroom specific settings, such as hallways, playgrounds, and cafeterias for intervention. Another study, according to Colvin et al. In 1997, they studied the effects of pre-correction and active supervision on elementary school students in major transition settings. So this includes like entering the school, moving from like the cafeteria to another place in the school, and then also exiting the building. Supervising staff members were trained to implement pre-correction strategies and to increase their use of active supervision. Before each transition period, the principal will remind teachers to verbally prompt students about appropriate behavior. The data that was collected was measured, the data measured the number of supervising staff present during each 5-minute observation interval in each transition setting. Multiple baseline design was used across the 3 transition settings. to evaluate the effectiveness of pre-correction and active supervision. What they found was that more times a supervisor interacted with a student, the fewer times problem behaviors were displayed. So overall, the use of PBS in specific settings, like I said, hallways, transition times, cafeterias, playgrounds, arrival times, dismissal times, has consistently demonstrated positive results. Effective interventions such as active supervision, group contingencies, and pre-correction were developed by teams formed during training, requiring the involvement of school staff, and were specifically designed for each school. Varying combinations of these strategies not only improve behavior, but also result in generalization across settings. Even though PBS is a great program to implement in schools, it does offer some limitations. There still remains numerous unanswered questions in the emerging literature. While PBS proponents often maintain that universal school-wide interventions result in improved behavior for students with chronic behavioral problems, there's still very little research on this. Future investigations must demonstrate that the pupils requiring extensive individualized supports can also benefit from school-wide interventions.
So next we're going to take a look at the school-wide positive behavior support systems and kind of how it works. So the school classroom systems are one small circle in the graph, and then non-classroom systems, setting systems, and then individual student systems. And that creates the whole positive behavior support system within the school. So all of these things play a major key role in creating positive behavior support. Next, we're going to take a look at the positive behavior support, and how it works. So you would have your target behavior, and you do an observation, and then you would collect data. You'd have baseline data, then you would implement your replacement behavior after you figure out your functions with your FBA. Then you'd have your replacement behavior and implement your intervention and the reinforcement, and then you'll repeat the process kind of as needed in order to teach that replacement behavior. And then finally, we have just a quick example of what a positive behavior support plan or support would look like within a school with level 1 behaviors. So some examples are non-compliance or disruption of instruction. So the consequences might be a nonverbal cue, proximity, a timeout, etc. With a level 2, it would be physical aggression or abusive language. And again, it might be a nonverbal cue, proximity, parent contact. So it's nothing too extreme compared to the two. The third one would be level 3 behaviors, so that's theft, alcohol, drugs, weapons, major destruction, and that could be an in-school suspension, an out-of-school suspension, or expulsion, just depending on the level of severity.
Zero-tolerance policies initially started as a way to crack down on the adult crimes, specifically drugs, in the 1980s. From there, it expanded to the issues of pollution, sexual harassment, and trespassing. Zero-tolerance policies began making their way into schools due to school violence incidents that occurred during the 1990s, as well as the passage of the Gun-Free Schools Act of 1994. The Gun-Free Schools Act of 1994 requires that any student that brings a gun to school must be expelled from the school for at least 1 year. Schools who do not comply with this act can lose their federal funding. Therefore, all 50 states have implemented zero-tolerance policies in order to comply with this act. Several states even went a step further and included other law violations within the zero-tolerance policies. Some of these additions include the possession of other weapons such as knives, acts of violence, possession or use of drugs or alcohol, threats of violence, and sexual harassment. Zero-tolerance policies vary from state to state and from school to school. The punishment for zero-tolerance policies also varies. but most often it consists of suspension or expulsion. These policies are designed to provide consistency in the punishment of particular infractions or behaviors. According to the American Bar Association, zero-tolerance policies involve schools severely and automatically punishing students for a number of different behaviors. Parent and community opinion of zero-tolerance policies tend to fluctuate. Positive opinions of these policies tend to emerge when they feel for their students' safety. However, negative opinions tend to emerge when they feel like a student's right to education is being threatened. All behavior, whether accidental or purposeful, is treated the same. For example, a student who forgets that she has cough medicine with codeine in her purse receives the same punishment as a student who brings cocaine to school, which leads us to the limitations of zero-tolerance policies. These policies do not take into consideration the circumstances or context of the situation in which the behavior occurred. They are often considered to be complex, costly, and largely ineffective. Students of color are more affected by zero-tolerance policies. African American students are on the receiving end of the zero-tolerance punishment the most. National estimates of data from the U.S. Department of Education from 2004 show that African American students receive the discipline of corporal punishment, out-of-school suspension, and expulsion twice as often as other students of color. A disproportionate number of students with disabilities, especially those with emotional or behavioral disorders, are also negatively affected by zero-tolerance policies. Unfortunately, more often than not, the behavior of these students are not much different than those of their non-disabled peers. However, the disproportionate number may be due to the fact that the students with disabilities are not as proficient as avoiding detection as their non-disabled peers. Zero-tolerance policies can have a long-term negative effect on the students who are disciplined. School suspension and expulsion are moderately associated with a higher likelihood of school dropout and failure to graduate on time. According to the ABA Zero Tolerance Task Force in 2008, there is not a sufficient research base in order to accurately evaluate the impact of a zero-tolerance policy and practice on student behavior or school climate. The task force makes four suggestions for zero-tolerance research. The suggestions include the development of more systematic prospective studies, an expansion of research on the connections between the education and the juvenile justice system, or what is otherwise termed as the school-to-prison pipeline, the national level research on the possible disproportionate use of zero tolerance on youth of color, and conduct a cost-benefit analysis to determine cost-benefit analysis designed to show the relative benefits on school climate by removing students compared to the cost to society. And I will leave you with this quote from the National Association of School Psychologists in their document, Zero Tolerance and Alternative Strategies, a fact sheet for educators and policymakers. They say, although zero-tolerance policies were developed to assure consistent and firm consequences for dangerous behaviors, broad application of these policies has resulted in a range of negative outcomes with few, if any, benefits to students or the school community.
So I am going to share with you a graph talking about zero tolerance. So with zero tolerance, the school systems began adopting zero tolerance policies after Congress passed the 1994 Gun-Free Schools Act, as LaDonna had said, which required one-year expulsions for bringing a firearm or bomb to school. More than 90% of the U.S. public schools had zero tolerance for firearms or other weapons in 1997. So it talks about how the U.S. public schools with zero tolerance policies in 1996 and 97. So, and how they increased with the unacceptable conduct, so violence and tobacco, then alcohol and drugs, other weapons, and firearms, and how they all increased with the zero tolerance policies. So then the next, we're going to cover some questions. So we just have a few questions, and I'm going to ask the first one to Ashley. So my student has special needs and he can be aggressive. I worry that having him enrolled within a school, he will get really upset and end up throwing items at others. I worry about their safety and his safety as well. I don't want them to kick him out. What should I do?
That is a very good question. Many schools offer supports for children using PBS. The PBS model is essential to research and education oneself on the various models used within a school district. The positive behavior model seems most appropriate for your child because the staff will find empirically based interventions which would teach the child replacement behavior. Zero tolerance programs would not tolerate this and would not tolerate the behaviors that you just described to me because since the child is endangering of harming oneself or others, he has the potential of getting suspended or expelled from the school.
Thank you. So next I'm going to ask LaDonna. So can you have both positive behavior support and zero tolerance within the school? Like implement positive behavior every day, but if a child were to bring a gun to school and attempts to use it, would he get suspended or would that be okay?
It's actually a pretty tricky question because PBS can be implemented in a school district. However, zero tolerance can also be implemented due to federal law. Bringing a gun to school is breaking the law, and therefore can result in suspension without warning. This is a severe issue and will not be tolerated within a school.
Thank you. So the next question I'm going to ask, and I'm going to go ahead and answer it myself. So positive behavior support does not work for my child. He does not respond to the positive interventions that are placed throughout the school. What other suggestions do you have? So my other suggestion is to verify that the school is conducting a functional behavior assessment prior to using the positive behavior support, because you have to know what makes your child respond positively, and inform all the staff needs to be informed of what plan would best benefit him and support your student. So the FBA would provide detailed information regarding the student's behaviors, and if it does not work, then you could research a school that implements a zero tolerance policy. However, I just worry that they would be suspended based on their behavior and the severity of it. So next I'm going to ask Ashley again. So how can positive behavior support be implemented school-wide if it is an individualized plan?
This really depends on the school itself. Many schools implement a form of PBS, and you can't always walk into a school and tell. Some schools may have more positive quotes, posters, sayings on the walls. I know this one school that I have worked in, they have PBS written on poster boards, and they're really gung-ho about implementing positive behavior supports within the school. So you'll see many signs around the school that just say, be safe, be kind, be respectful, all over the school. So that was a way that you could walk within the school and you could see that. But then some schools don't really have this. They're more traditional. They if you talk with a faculty member, they could tell you about all the positive behavioral support plans that they do implement. So if you're familiar with the PBS model, you can tell based on the teacher and administrator and how they work with the student.
Great. You definitely described kind of what a school setting would look like with using the positive behavior support.
I also have some questions that could be asked if you guys are up for it. This could go for anybody. Maybe LaDonda, you can answer it. How is zero tolerance effective for everyone? If you can maybe explain that further, how is this like an effective program for like everyone, including children with like special needs, and then children in general education programs?
Zero tolerance would be effective for everyone because everyone is treated the same. There's no, well, so-and-so kind of acts this way, so I'm going to send him that. I'm going to send him for expulsion. It's, okay, you do this, you receive this punishment, which is kind of a little similar to how it kind of works in everyday life. If you speed or if you commit a crime and the police catch you, you're going to get some kind of punishment.
Okay, but what if like a parent comes in and they don't think it's fair that students with disabilities get special treatment, and if like a child seriously, you know, hurts another child and they don't get suspended, or if they like do get suspended, how do you think like zero tolerance could be like I don't know, like I guess implemented for children with autism? Like they want, that parent wants the child to be punished just like everybody else. Do you think that zero tolerance would be effective here?
I am a special education teacher, and we would typically have a manifestation determination meeting, so that would determine if the child's disability plays a role in their behaviors. And so they could be implemented in the zero tolerance policies if they do something severe, and it would be discussed with his whole IEP team if that was truly the behavior itself, or if it was caused by his disability. So with the zero tolerance, they could be treated like everybody else, but there would still be some kind of meeting where they could determine if that was, you know, worth a zero tolerance policy or if it was their disability.
Okay, great. Cool, thanks. I also wanted to share, I don't think the data that you presented for zero tolerance popped up. I just kind of wanted to share that with everybody, just in case. I just don't think that popped up when you tried to share that with all of us. So if you can just give me 1 second, hopefully I can get that to work. Maybe then, Kelly, you can go over it.
Okay. So it just says most schools adopt the zero tolerance. So they began adopting zero tolerance policies after Congress passed the 1994 Gun-Free Schools Act, which required 1-year expulsions for bringing a firearm or a bomb to school. So then it talks about kind of how zero tolerance had other unacceptable conduct, and the rates of expulsion increased due to that. So it says like violence and tobacco use and alcohol, drugs, and how firearms definitely increase with the zero tolerance, and how it made schools safer.
Great. I just want to make sure that everyone got that. Okay.
Great.
Okay. Well, that concludes our debate on positive behavioral support plans and zero tolerance. We can maybe offer some links up on Blackboard with some of the facts that we have found and some other websites that were very useful in conducting our research and everything. And we look forward to hearing everybody's feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you.